and I'm the secretary. I think we both have Elaine, Richard, and Vern on today, who are the vice president and president. And in a couple of years, we're going to have the HEEP annual conference in Utah. Next year, COVID permitting, we'll have it in Connecticut, and then in 2022 it will be in Florida. So with that said, for those of you who are on here, most of you are probably familiar with HEEP, but for the ones that are not, HEEP is basically just an organization that is advancing or promoting the advancements in transportation engineering through the exchange of knowledge and information technology. And it's been a great organization that has pushed a lot of innovative things, and I really enjoy going to the conferences and networking with everyone. Today, we're going to have the second in our BIM webinar education series, and it's going to be Richard Petrie from buildingSMART. And I'm just going to read Richard's bio real quick. I'd like to kind of get to it as quickly as we can so that we'll have some time for questions at the end. Richard's career history has been in engineering and construction contracting, construction client rep, and insurance provisioning consultant for high-risk, capital-intensive assets. He's been with the oil and gas and equipment and services, marine charter services and ship construction, airport infrastructure, building services, and civil engineering. Chartered engineer with MBA, ISEAD in France, international business career including Algeria, China, Finland, Germany, Indonesia, Norway, Singapore, UK, Ukraine, and USA. His relevant experiences: he's been CEO of Lloyd's Register, chief executive roles in multiple marine and oil service companies, and the technical director of BAA PLC. He's currently CEO of buildingSMART International, and today Richard is going to give us an overview. Well, I should say he's going to present on IFC and where buildingSMART is. So without further ado, Richard, if you want to share your screen, and looks like you have, and get started, that sounds great. So thank you, Richard. We appreciate it.
Thank you, George. Thank you for that introduction. I hope you are seeing my screen, everybody. That should be.
Yep, I see it.
Good. I guess one thing to pull out about my career, really, or two things perhaps, but I would just say that I have seen the need for good data and good business processes across all these different industries and all around the world. And it really convinces me that this journey we're on now to really develop open data standards is a huge step forward and a very, I think, critical thing for our industry.
Absolutely agree. Yeah.
I'm delighted to be here today, and really I'm going to try and give you an introduction today to buildingSMART, to the IFC schema and some of the work we're doing, and to what we're doing in the USA to try and give you a good feeling for that. I guess what I want to impress upon you is that this is really an active community. I'm very keen to reach out and have all you people in the USA actively engaged with us, and this is a very exciting time as these work that our organization has been doing on data standards really comes to the forefront, and I think people are beginning to understand the strategic need for it. So our mission in buildingSMART is to enable the full benefits of digital ways of working for the built asset industry. And I always make 2 points about this: that full benefits, I believe, are not available if you are not using open data standards. And the other point is that the built asset industry is a term I use to make sure when I'm including clients in the description of what is often called the construction industry. Clients have a crucial role to play. Indeed, it is central to, I think, clients' business operations in our future digital world, that they assert clearly their data rights and work to determine those now. buildingSMART is a not-for-profit organization. We are open, neutral, and operate worldwide. I think these values are very important, as we have to provide an environment of trust where people have confidence that the contributions they make or contribute will be available to them through our open processes, and that we will treat all nations and all groups across the supply chain, all actors in the same way. I want to talk a bit about Open BIM. Open BIM is one of our sort of brand identifiers. We talk about Open BIM as a collaborative process, not just a set of data standards, because we understand and realize that actually to work digitally isn't just a question of having data standards, it is a question of having processes that people understand, and so that the data you send or receive is understood within its proper context. And we're not just talking about sort of projects, we're also talking about the whole life cycle and operations in facilities management. Moving on to talk a bit about open digital twins. We see that the need for what we call an ecosystem of ecosystems, in other words, we see the need for multiple digital twins able to interoperate through different actors and different stages of the life cycle of assets is a critical requirement, we believe, for, let's say, efficient data working in the future. And we think that we are uniquely positioned, actually, being this neutral body, to really contribute to the leadership and creation of digital twins in a way that is, I suppose, conducive to the alignment of the sort of natural benefits of data ownership to the rightful owners of those assets. I want to talk a bit about the sort of what I think are the sort of natural benefits of open neutral data exchanges, flexibility of choice of technology, sustainability, future-proof your business and your digital destiny. Don't get locked into any particular solution or idea. Ability to drive efficiency into your organization by enabling it digitally, access to new and international markets, especially from a supply chain perspective, and the opportunity for financial performance improvement through long and short-term benefits. And I guess, at the heart of this, in my mind, is the ability to, and I would say almost responsibility of clients to set their own data strategy, to manage their data rights, and open data standards provide you the basis for doing that. I want to talk now a little bit about our industrial partnerships. And these are very important, and it's very clear that this journey of digitization of the built asset industry is one of those hairy, audacious goals in the sort of classic term, and that we all need to work together to solve and address the problems. So we're sort of proud of our partnerships and of working with others. GS1 are the people behind the barcodes that you'll be familiar with from sort of products and retail environments. We think that common workflows with that sort of technology clearly has a big place to play in the built asset place. OGC is the Open Geospatial Consortium. Obviously, BIM and GIS is a big topic. ETIM are an electromechanical group. UIC are the International Railway Consortium. WGIC are the World Geospatial Industry Council. I want to particularly draw attention to the Open Data Alliance, ODA. I'll come back to that later. I'll also focus a bit more on the Digital Twin Consortium and the ICMS Coalition. Those are all quite new additions to us. On the right, you will see the sort of supranational sort of formal standards bodies. ISO and CEN is the European standards body. These are the bodies that set standards in a former intergovernmental sense, and we are liaison A partners to both these organizations in our field of expertise. A quick summary of the BuildingSMART organization. BuildingSMART, first and foremost, is an organization made up by national organizations, which we call chapters. They came together in, I think, 1996 to form BuildingSMART International. And BuildingSMART International is the lead body that leads up that network of chapters. Since then, we've added organizational members. at the international level as well as at our chapter level locally. And we hold normally 2 technical summits a year, a chapter conference and an AGM each year, are our formal meetings of buildingSMART International. We have a lot of partners who work with us, and I've just illustrated some of those, and sponsors who help pay for the work we do. Obviously, our job at buildingSMART International is to organize and lead the international community in this combined effort to fulfill our mission. We operate through 3 programs: a user program, the standards and solutions program, and the compliance program. The user program is very much the responsibility and delivered through our chapters to users in the countries that they operate around the world. Standards and solutions work is our main sort of engine at buildingSMART International, and the compliance work is where we start with software testing and validation, and we're also launching a professional certification scheme for individuals, and we have a vision to grow that much more extensively. Just to sort of focus a bit more on these programs, we have a formal buildingSMART process, the BSI process. This is our rule book about how we work, and that's available on our website. It's very important that we are transparent and make sure that is available to everybody to know that how things are managed. This international consensus building is, of course, a complex process and needs clarity for the whole community at large. So you might consider that process to be the axis through the middle of this triangle, linking our 3 programs. Just to stepping outside of that internal focus, the point here is that the users in the countries define the needs, and those needs that feed into the requirements within the standards and solutions program. And then once those solutions are developed, we then can test the performance, if you like, against those and deliver those solutions in a working sense back to users. And of course, vendors play a very important part in this. We are very much concerned with making sure that we are delivering standards that work in practice and that they are not just standards on a shelf. And that's one way, as an industry standards body, that we differentiate ourselves from the supranational standards bodies that I mentioned earlier. We work in a series of domain fora, and we call those rooms, which comes from our history. And so the current working rooms that we have are buildings, infrastructure, product, technical, airport, railway, regulatory, and construction. We are hopeful of starting rooms for product manufacturers, power, and always open to, if you like, new domains that need have special requirements and need to be addressed. I was actually speaking this morning at an open BIM for hospitals conference this morning in Finland. So our standards at the moment, clearly we started, and the IFC schema is historically known as addressing the buildings domain on the top left. We clearly, a lot of the investment requirements around the world are in these infrastructure domains, and we're very pleased with the work we've been doing in the recent years to be extending the schema to cover roads, bridges, railways, ports and waterways, and with ongoing work to cover the domains of the geotechnical requirements and tunnels. So I'd like to, this is a roll call of our sponsors, and very proud of this level of commitment. And it grows, of course, project by project and year by year, but very important to recognise both the work in kind effort and the funded cash funding that our sponsors provide to help us advance our work. We are not the only way we get projects done is through the effort of our community. We don't have any funding scheme independently of our members or chapters. So now to bring you up to date with some of the current work. We have done a lot of work in the railway infrastructure area. This has been very much an international effort with, let's say, Chinese participants and a lot of the European railway authorities. I can move that out of the way. SBB are the Swiss railways, SNCF are the French railways, MIND is a French national program to implement digital ways of working. We have then the Danish Rail Authority, I think Norwegian, Finnish, Austrian, Swedish, Italian, and CR BIM, who are the Chinese, I suppose, it's an association of 12 Chinese railway authorities. They've been working together for probably 5 years now on this project. Took them, I would say, quite a lot of time to do the definitional work. Yes, 2007. So this project has had 2 phases now. The first phase and it covers a great deal of the schema, sort of different areas. I suppose they've broken it up into a number of different areas, and there is a great deal of information about this on our website. But a big milestone was completed at the end of last year at our summit that we held in Beijing at the time, when we published the candidate standard for rail and completed phase 1. That is now available for comment publicly, and we are working on the phase 2 of that, which is the implementation and validation phase with vendors, and that's an active project at the moment. This project has been, had a very high level of project management and a very high level of commitment from the rail authorities that have been backing it. And now I'd like to talk about what we've called the infrastructure extensions project, the second current project that is sort of relevant in this context. And this covers the domains of bridges, roads, ports and waterways, and let's say the common schema elements. Clearly, one of our jobs is to make sure there is alignment between, let's say, these different domain areas, and that we therefore make it as easy as possible and work with vendors to ensure that these schemas that are developed are indeed implementable in a good way. You can see here that this is a high level of involvement from around the world, and including, let's say, some of the countries we've mentioned earlier, but also other nations. I know that there's a parallel. The work that was done in the US in association with the Federal Highways Association also fed into this work. So just to give you a quick outline here of these projects in these different domains, and they up to the candidate standard project level, these were all run as separate projects by the domain experts in their different areas. So the Ports and Waterways project as an association with specialists from China Construction Communications Company, but probably strongly led by Royal Dutch Haskening and Cardiff University. Royal Dutch Haskening are a Dutch but broad European engineering company who specialize in waterways and ports work. So that was a significant domain set that's been added, and because of the unusual nature or the different nature of that, they didn't require a certain number of extensions to the schema, and I'd say some new hierarchy about how to group and look at assets. Roads has been obviously a long-standing area of importance, and I need to give credit to the Korean Institute for Construction Technology, KICT, who probably from early 2012 have been promoting this work, and obviously we're pleased that in the recent years we've got a good high-level momentum to support that. And it's now the roads project, which is leading the implementation and deployment work that is our current focus. Important to talk also about the bridges project. This was actually probably one of the early projects, and where we sort of first saw the international cooperation. And you can see that we've had input there from France, Germany, Finland, the Netherlands, and Japan in the early stages of that. And as I said, liaison with the USA as well. And the common schema elements are described in this separate project on the right. So a lot of work has been going on over the last 4 or 5 years to develop these schema, and we're very pleased that they are now published and in this deployment phase. And I do see that as a really significant major milestone for the community at large in the addition of these schema, these domains to the schema. I'd like to spend a bit of time on our members. We have 3 categories of organizational members for BuildingSMART International. And I'd say all of our members are also members of one, at least, of our chapter organizations. The category of strategic member is our top tier of membership, and these organizations also form what we call our strategic advisory council, who meet with the board twice a year and help set strategy and direction. So I was careful to thank these companies, and I very much appreciate their strong strategic leadership and vision in helping us grow and take forward our agenda. Multinational membership is a tier of membership which is open really for organizations that particularly want to focus on being a member of a number of our chapters. So as well as being a member of BuildingSMART International, if you're a multinational member, you can join up to 5 of our national chapters. And that appeals very often to, let's say, software vendors, and we appreciate their engagement. But it's also very pleasing to see Kajima Corporation from Japan, who are a leader of the chapter there, and engineering organizations and Esri, and owners like Strabag and SBB joining in this level as well. And standard members, which is obviously our bedrock, most common basis. And I have to say, this year, notwithstanding the coronavirus impact on everybody's economies, all of our members from 2019 rejoined in 2020. And I think that's a testament to, I suppose, the commitment in our community and their recognition of the importance of the work that we're doing. I mentioned earlier that we're made up of our national chapters. This is our sort of deck of national chapters, 25 chapters at the moment. I have another application in the pipeline, as it were. So I anticipate being 26 before the start of next year. And it's quite a hard job being a chapter leader or being a chapter, because there's a natural challenges of growth as this agenda becomes more and more important. The expectations grow. So I really do take my hats off to the chapter leaders for their commitment to this agenda and ability to work through those changes as countries get more advanced in working with open data standards. So just to prove that it's not all about theoretical concepts and ideas, I've got 2 examples here of some very significant major projects which were winners in our 2019 awards, and actually our 2020 awards are being judged today in our virtual summit. So we'll have new examples probably by next week. But this is a 3.6 billion Australian dollar project, and used IFC at its core to manage these data exchanges, and you can see that they had reckon that they were doing 250 design exchanges each week. So a very significant project that used our schema and ways of working very extensively. There is a video to go with this, but I don't have the time to show you that today. And another major project is the Hinckley Point. This is a nuclear power project in the UK. It's one of those sort of mission critical assets, and they used IFC here to help do the sophisticated concrete and rebar design and pours to make sure that those pours could be done in a consistent and quality controlled way. And for that sophisticated work, they did a bespoke implementation of IFC, and they didn't realize they didn't have there was no other way to do it to cover all the features that needed to be addressed to ensure the right level of quality in this facility. So another very good example of what's going on. And now to talk a little bit about our professional certification work. This is part of our compliance program. The work we're focusing on at the moment is to provide a basic level of a common worldwide sort of benchmark for expertise for individuals so that companies and employers could have an assured understanding of the level of competence of individuals in dealing with, let's say, open BIM and how to work in that way. We started with a basic module. We're now extending that to more sophisticated levels, and we've also have some, let's say, some practitioner level certifications on specialist topics, and we're launching one for COBE very shortly. So just now, perhaps to give you some news updates of sort of things that have been going on recently, probably in the last 6 months or so. Starting with digital twins, we've released a positioning paper that was prepared under our organization. It has a very sort of high level of thought leadership from key individuals in the European context, really around how we should position digital twins and this ecosystem of ecosystems concept. So that's available on our website, and we're pleased to make that available to you. We're recently signed an MOU with the Digital Twin Consortium. I see that as an important body which is capturing a lot of attention, and I think is a very good party for which we can help. Of course, we can help buildingSMART ensure that the deployment of our schema is taken up by that organization as well. It's not an exclusive arrangement, and we are ready to enter into MOUs on digital twins with other bodies as well. We have appointed our own leader for our own digital twin working group. And that's again an individual from Royal Dutch Haskoning who's taken that on. So an industry leader rather than a vendor or client leader, and he's getting certainly a lot of acknowledgement from the community, which I'm pleased to be able to report. We have a lot of, I suppose, interest in my part in getting a good project submitted to our awards program. These act as a great reference body for sort of case studies and for demonstrating how open standards can be used and deployed. And as you can see, we're proud to have 111 individual submissions. We have technology solutions is a new category this year, and that's attracted a lot of attention. And we will have the finalists available in a gallery available so that they'll be easily accessible. We've recently announced the 2 new chapters, one in the UAE, based in Dubai, and the other in Slovenia in Eastern Europe, bringing the total to 25. And we've ODA recently announced, we have an MOU with the Open Design Alliance, as I mentioned earlier. They have recently announced that they providing support for IFC 4.3, and gave a very powerful presentation in our virtual conference that I listened to yesterday. And they're also going to be introducing an audit function to be able to allow people to check their IFC files. So this, what we call the final mile, this is the link, in telecoms terms, it's the link between the exchange and the user. So this is a very important development that they've taken this up. And I'm very pleased to see that they're, if you like, getting support from more and more of the vendors, and that the toolkit that they're providing is clearly getting some traction. At the other end of the scale, we have recently become a member of the International Coalition for Measurement Standards, Construction Measurement Standards. This is a worldwide standard for how to do construction management. It's particularly around cost estimating and those sort of areas. And by linking it with the IFC schema, we believe it's a very simple win-win for that standard schema and ourselves. We can get access to their semantics and their knowledge and expertise around the terms needed for cost management, and obviously we can make their standards more accessible and available by linking it with our schema, the IFC schema. So I think that's something I'm very hopeful that will add much more use cases ability to the schema in an easy way. And I think very important for the technical people in the audience here to know that we have a forward-looking technical roadmap for IFC. IFC was originally conceived probably 20 years ago, and based on some the appropriate technology at the time. Clearly, the underlying technology has moved quite significantly in the 20 years since then, and we are sort of making sure that we detach the schema from that original format of technology and make it available in a range of technologies so that it is agile and flexible and that can grow as modern computing practices grow. And this is therefore a very important move for the community, and needs to be coordinated and centrally managed. So anybody who's at all technical and wants to get a deeper understanding of that, we can follow up through either Ian or myself to brief you on it. I want also to point out the spread of IFC mandates, and this is by no means a complete listing. For example, the French are big players in this, and somehow they're not on this list. But it really does emphasize here that the schema is gaining prevalence, and it's therefore very exciting for me to be talking to you. I'm obviously delighted about the sort of growing interest in the US. I'm going to talk about that in a minute, but I want you to understand that the interest in the US is in the context here of global interest, and it's obviously a very exciting time. So in the US, the GSA, General Services Administration, requires IFC files and KB2 files. KB2 is a subset of the full IFC schema, and we're working on making sure there's a clear roadmap for KB going forward. But this is, as clients here, they are demanding it, and I guess they're not relying on it yet. I want to get to the point where we have implemented sufficient things to a sufficient quality with vendors that they will rely on the IFC files. But the first step is to demand them. And Ashto, organization I'm sure you're familiar with, but many in Europe aren't, very significant step that last year they resolved to adopt the IFC schema, and we are working closely with them to support them in that adoption. I'm very excited that brings a very significant client group to the table, and certainly will help gain the attention of other actors in the supply chain, including vendors, to improve and accelerate their adoption. We're working closely with the Ashto BIM for Bridges and Structures project. This is their roadmap. It's obviously very important that the implementation in the US is in tune and with the implementations internationally, and we have a close liaison with them. So I'm very excited that this project is going on, that it has this broad representation that you could see above. And yes, I'm looking forward to continuing and deepening this relationship with Ashto and supporting them in this work. Also like to mention our involvement in this project. It's the national, excuse me, trying to find the name for this thing. Foundation for Civil Infrastructure System and Knowledge, Open Knowledge Network project. And that's obviously a worthy and important activity. In this activity, we'll be working with Amazon, Google, and Microsoft in the phase 2 of the project. And the expectation here is that we will be using the IFC schema for the civil infrastructure work that's needed here. So actually very important accelerator going on in the US and strongly supported by our US chapter. So to talk a bit more about our US chapter, I think you will know that buildingSMART Alliance has perhaps been a long history in the US and a long association with NIBS, the National Institute for Building Sciences. About 3 years ago, there was a new group led by or working with the BIM Forum in the US, and I suppose these two bodies now are supporting and working with us with our new instance of the US chapter, and I'm very pleased that we have up and running now an independent, self-sustaining US chapter, and you have the contact details there. Just to give you some perspectives on the US chapter, we are setting up, it is now formally established as a proper legal entity in the US. We have industry committees and specialist committees, and at the moment we're working, obviously focusing on the roads, bridges and tunnels, along with Ashto, buildings and airports, and the educational, professional certification and technical areas. So a very solid chapter there now, and I'd be very pleased to invite anybody listening in the audience here to reach out with those contact details and to join up, to participate in our work. We'd be certainly excited to have your involvement. And finally, I'd like to let's say invite you all to attend our virtual summit. This is happening at the moment, and the days are recorded. So even though we've missed the 2 opening plenaries in a live sense, they are available recorded. So please go and see those through, and you can get access to that by visiting the buildingSMART International website, buildingsmart.org. I think that's the end of my presentation. Hopefully I'm reasonably on time.
So any questions, please put in the chat box. Richard, one thing I was curious about is it seems like last March, right before the pandemic hit, there was the schedule of voting candidate standard for road and such. Can you kind of briefly or talk about that a little bit, where that sits?
Yes, so the way we have a process has a number of gateways in it. So we have a buildingSMART process that has the 3 sort of stages: initiation, development and approval. And the governance there is set up first of all through rooms, and then we have a strategic a vote of these standards committee, which is the body that finally votes. The standards committee is made up of representatives from our chapters and from our members, and at the key milestones, the standards committee is asked to vote. So you're correct that the vote to advance it as a standards committee was as a candidate standard was approved before sort of the COVID situation arose. That's the point where it becomes really open publicly for public comment, and we've entered our deployment and testing period. So that is, or what is perhaps called the approval phase here. We still open, it still may change in this period. That's important. We must make sure that these standards work in practice. And so there is a feedback loop from both the public comment and from the deployment and testing period before the standards become final. But that's the work that's ongoing at the moment. And yeah, takes quite a lot of work and effort by the committees doing that work.
So with that, maybe just a follow up is there's a couple of things with regard to the schedule. Do you have sort of the anticipated timeline for it becoming a final standard, and where the vendors would be involved in developing their and I don't know what the correct wording is, if it's a model view definition or if it's just accepting the schema or what that is, but can you go over that a little bit as well?
So I know that the projects both started, I think, with a view that they were working on for a timeline of approximately 12 to 18 months for the testing and deployment. I think that may be slightly longer now because of COVID. I will say that there is good engagement from the vendors in both these projects. We have some metrics on that. But what I can't say is how I guess what I don't have visibility of yet is the deployment period, how long it takes vendors to really put this into practice. Because this sort of testing is one thing, but then putting it into their product and release cycle is beyond our control. So I guess I can't give you the full sort of firm answer on the back end of that. I think what we do have to all recognise is that we are on a journey here, and that it's we have to work through some of these challenging timeline issues.
And then I guess, pardon my ignorance, but is that part of maybe a moving target then, as it being a final standard?
Well, I think the final standard will come once the deployment testing period is over,
Okay.
and that should be fairly clear. But I'm saying after that, the implementation
Okay.
period by vendors is the thing I can't control.
And what is the anticipated date for the final standard?
I would say hopefully in a year from now.
Okay, so we're looking at 2021 at some point.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then are vendors theoretically already sort of working on taking the newest standard and implementing it, or do they wait for the final standard before they really dig in and start doing it?
Well, some of them are already implementing it, and I would say the Open Design Alliance toolkit already covers the latest implementation. So that really helps a great deal that it's kind of that is available. I think they are digging in. I think what they want from us is consistency. They want to see that the US and Europe and international are going in the same direction. And I know that there are circuits they have to go. There are feedback loops that the vendors have tried things and say, well, that's not really optimal for us, so that we alter the standard. And that's a continuous ongoing process, which is, I think, a good thing from both parties' point of view, and the sort of thing I would expect. Nothing has been raised with me from that process so far that gives me cause to think that there's any sort of thing I don't know about, any upset coming.
Sure. Okay, let me check and see if we've got any questions. A question from Derek Gray of Bentley. Can you speak to the model view definition and the role in the IFC schema?
So model view definition, I guess, is a term that is often is used by different people in different ways. So when in the IFC 4 technology, if we're talking technically to software vendors, so with capital M, capital V, capital D, we're trying to aim for reference view, if you like, which is like the coordination view at the moment. So there'll be 3 principal views for each domain area, and obviously we're trying to ensure as much alignment of that as possible. And with a sort of the colloquial MVD with the lowercase m and MV and D is often what I would really call data exchange exchange requirement for a particular use case. And I suppose I would sort of say that I'm hoping that if we can really move ahead with the IFC 5 technology, this I suppose the significance or the complexity of dealing with MVDs will be reduced. And in other words, it'll be simpler in the future. I'm not sure that's answered David's question.
A comment that Ian made, Ian Howe, order demand is a big driver. The Ashto mandate to adopt IFC will push vendors to implement more quickly. I'm sorry, to pivot off what Ian said, or actually going back to the capital MVD and small lowercase MVD. And this, I apologize, this is again my own ignorance, but DOTs are going to be very interested at some point in time of having, their own database structure within their environment. Is there going to be a need, whether it's through IFC or other means, to be able to use some sort of a schema or an MVD to translate data from either construction projects or design software or whatever it would be to actually get that data into their database system?
Well, I think one of the key things here is going to be having defined semantics. So there will be a need for a defined set of semantics that suit different DOTs, or let's say suit Ashto. That's a need we're trying to fulfill through our data dictionary service, and we do anticipate there being a need for if you like, a local data dictionary in the US, or indeed, Ashto perhaps could have one. So, but they should all be linking so that this ability to extend and have clear semantics is absolutely vital to have interoperability. And so that's it isn't just about the sort of schema in a box. It is about having live web services to support the use of it. And one of those things is going to be a semantic data dictionary tool. So so I think that's part of the answer to your question. And I also think that we will also settle on, we're hoping, these domain-specific MVDs that support those different areas, or as the technology goes forward, we think we'll probably call them modules in future. But yes, there will be. We won't be asking, let's say, Ashto or the people supporting Ashto to implement the whole schema, but just to focus on what is needed for, let's say, roads, bridges, and structures in a focused way. So I think that's part of the answer to that question.
Okay. I'm glad Randy asked a question, because I almost had to call him out. He always has great questions. He's a past president of HEEP as well. His question is, are there good, solid case studies on how the owners of the projects are using IFC after the construction is done?
I think there are use cases, or at least there are case studies, I would say, from our awards program in the buildings area. Of course, we're only just advancing the schema for infrastructure, so there isn't any history in infrastructure yet. Of course, we anticipate that the facilities management of operations is probably 80% of the value of a, say, digital economy, and therefore this is a very important part of the overall life cycle. And we are sort of developing, let's say, roadmaps within our working groups, specifically to focus on facilities operation and facilities management, but that we will need to do new standards development because, if you like, COBE is very much about buildings equipment. That's where it came from, and it's being extended to talk about buildings more generally. But we're also needing to move to repeat the requirements for infrastructure. And yes, I've just seen Ian's comment there about also looking at asset management as a whole. So which portfolios of either buildings or roads or bridges. So you can look at the collective requirements. It's another level on top.
Okay, and I guess you saw Ian's comment of the BIM to AIM for asset lifecycle. It sounds like you just addressed that. Going back to the Ashto mandate for IFC, with that, and again, I apologize for my own ignorance, but I'm still a little bit got some questions with regard to was the Committee on Design, the Joint Technical Committee for Electronic Engineering Standards that kind of pushed that resolution forward, and it was adopted by Ashto. With that said, what do you see as the next steps for, I guess, the DOTs or the Ashto members to really make sure that vendors are utilizing IFC or adopting it so that I mean, not to get too much into the weeds, but I think we're all very interested in making the model the legal document and flowing data from design to construction to asset management. And so it's a very important part for us to make sure that we're all consistent with how that data flow goes.
So I would have two comments. I hesitate a little bit in my answer because I think Ashto obviously have the prerogative to organise themselves how they wish.
Sure.
But I think the current project that they're doing for bridges and structures has been a very good deployment project, testing project, and I think I understand they are looking at doing something similar for IFC for roads. So I would wholeheartedly support that. I would also say that there needs to be a cross-discipline committee to coordinate, open standards across roads and bridges and structures. So we shouldn't just look at the verticals. I think IFC needs to be seen as a horizontal as well, and I would say that needs to link up. I would like to see a very close relationship with that industry committee in our chapter, because I think it's absolutely crucial that I've sort of explained that we are all on a journey with IFC. It's still relatively at the beginning of its journey, and we must stay aligned internationally. We can't allow people to diverge. That will undermine the benefits. So I would really commend the engagement in the international community as a sort of key requirement for long-term success. But I think it's a really exciting time right now. But I'm also really want to convey to people that we've made huge progress. Having these domains in place is a fantastic milestone, but we're not at the end of the journey, and there is a lot of work to do, especially with vendors, around how to make sure we implement it, that IFC 5 is really agile and flexible and something they can happy to implement easily. And I think that will be. I'm confident that we have the right relationship that can be very positive. But then when I talk to people like you or to Ashto, I need to convey that this is not a fixed thing. We're all on a journey together. We need to be agile together in implementing this and working on the steps that have to be done.
Awesome. So Ian also put in the chat that BSI is also working with HDR to coordinate an implementer stakeholder group for the pooled fund project. Can you comment a little bit on that? Do you know, or is Ian more on that? And more than anything, it sounds like, I'm assuming when he talks about pooled fund, that's the road side and not the bridge side, because it seems like the bridge side is, I don't want to say wrapping up, but it's been going on for a couple of years, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, we have regular meetings with HDR, so I do know that the bridge project it's actually in a deployment stage. We have trying to organise close liaison with our road deployment project, and share resources with that. So actually, it's a very good timing in terms of the international development. The two things are happening in parallel, and I think there is I'd say growing that their full fund area is talking about is the bridges and structures one, which you say has been going on, and HDR are well placed coordinating that.
All right. Well, we are sort of running up toward the top of the hour. So I would just like to say thank you very much. I appreciate your time and your presentation. It was very informative. I also wanted to thank Ian for helping set this up, as well as, I'm not going to butcher his name. Is it Aiden as well? Or
Aiden Mercer, yes.
Okay, yeah. But thank you guys very much. The one thing we did get in the chat was another past president, Kevin Martin, had asked if he could get, if there was a copy of the presentation. If you'd be willing to send even a PDF, that would be great, and I can post it. Okay, that would be fantastic.
We're very happy to send you a PDF, and please distribute that. And anybody wants anything, please reach out. Ian or I'd be happy to try and help.
Okay, that sounds great. Just to wrap things up, both for those on the Google Meet as well as on YouTube, we will be doing, it looks like 4 more educational series. And I believe the one in January, right now we're looking at it being something from the Ashto Joint Technical Committee. And so stay tuned for those appointments. And if you've got any questions, like Richard said, reach out to him or me, and we'll do whatever we can to answer your questions. So with that, thank everyone very much. We appreciate your interest, and have a great day. Thanks again, Richard. Appreciate it.
I really appreciate it being part of this call. Thank you, George.